Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show are available through Spotify. And if you'd like to contact the show, you'll get us on Twitter at the_upper_tier, or you'll get us on Facebook and Instagram, the Upper Tier. Joining me tonight for a very interesting topic, a topic that's come up many a time on the Monday mashups. And I can't think of a better guy than to bring on than my partner in crime on these VAR decisions at times, Mark, our resident referee. How are we doing, cuz? How are you?
How's it going, cuz? Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no, not about it all. Seems like it's been a while since we've shared the screen, actually, as well, hasn't it?
It's been a long time.
What's it, about three mashups back, maybe?
Could be, yeah. Just been out the door with work and trying to win money playing pool, you know yourself.
The hustle is real. The hustle is real.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I'd get you on. We do a quick little episode on VAR. It's 3 years since it was approved by the Premier League. And I thought we'd have a chat about it, and I could bring the perspective from the fan side of things, and you could bring the perspective from fan side of things, but also from a refereeing point of view, because you're in the cold face of that every weekend as a referee over here in the Irish League.
In the trenches.
In the trenches, as they say, yeah. The show of soil and sidelines, solidarity, and all this stuff that's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
Remember when referees were real men, no?
Only messing. Oh, no, it's all changed now, isn't it?
Absolutely. I suppose, where do we begin? Let's have a chat about VAR. I mean, there was fans and referees and players all alike clamoring for this, that they wanted it brought in, that there was, let's suppose I'd say, a dip in the standard of refereeing for a long time, and a lot of decisions were being made wrong that were very blatant decisions.
Yeah.
That were obviously causing teams points and results and all that kind of thing. And I think you've alluded to it before, and it was never more obvious than last year with Sheffield United and Aston Villa, that goal, if we remember, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it could have easily ended up in relegation and all this kind of stuff, but it didn't. But let's have a talk. I mean, in terms of VAR, I mean, your initial thoughts on it when it was being touted to the Premier League.
Yeah, well, initially, like, we've been talking about VAR within the referee circle since, I think it was 2012-13, when they kind of brought it in Holland. And obviously, a lot of sports fans would have seen it working in the rugby and the cricket, but it doesn't necessarily transition, brilliantly into another sport. You have to work on it. Went over to the MLS. It kind of got a little bit better, and then it brought it back to Holland. And obviously, when the time there was talk about coming to the Premier League, I'd say there was probably, an 80-20 kind of fan situation of people in favour of it, because you've seen the decisions being made by referees in the Premier League. And I always say here, the referees are only human. They can only go on what their assistant referees are saying. And don't forget, the Premier League is played at such a pace where, players get brushed over with, a feather. And it's so hard to, tell what's genuine and not. So for me, it was great to see something coming in that was going to help a referee with its decision making. And obviously, like I said, since 2012-13, I had been kind of developing from Holland. So by the time it came around here, you would have thought, in theory, it should have been the polished and finished product, but it hasn't been that for me anyway.
Yeah, kind of. They've made changes as they went along, and like everything, I mean, as you said, it doesn't translate necessarily from one kind of sport to another. I mean, if you look at cricket and you look at rugby, there tends to be breakdowns in those games and pauses and take stock and all that kind of stuff. So it's natural for those two sports to have this kind of thing. But in football, where there's no real stoppage, what I mean? It's full blast. I know it goes out for throw-ins and goal kicks and all that kind of stuff, but it's 100 miles an hour generally, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think when it came in, I think fans were quite excited, because if you think about some of the positives that were touted at the time about it, they were talking about better decision making. They were talking about excitement during games. They were talking about maintaining player discipline, avoiding controversial decisions, and improving the game. Now
it's funny looking now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking back at that.
So now you look at those 4 or 5 kind of things that it was supposed to deliver. And you're thinking, has it delivered on them in reality?
I don't think so. Like when you look at it, when it was introduced, and you're talking about what you're just talking about there, you think of the lower teams in the league. You know, there's always talk about the top 6, top 8 getting all the decisions, penalty decisions, and this, that, and the other. You know, those clubs near the bottom and mid-table would have been looking at that going, right, this is our. Everyone says it levels itself over a season, but doesn't really, you know, that type of way. But as a fan, you're kind of thinking, right, at least the decisions are going to be, you know, they're going to be spot on, well, meant to be spot on. But like, if you're in a stadium and it's taking 4 or 5 minutes for a decision, you're going to get absolutely frustrated. And you know yourself, because when you celebrate a goal, your initial reaction is to jump and go mad, but you're kind of thinking, well, I'm going to have to wait now here 2 minutes to find out, you know, that's, or if goalkeeper saves a penalty, again, you're waiting, did his foot leave the line? Like, I'm going to have to wait here till we celebrate. So, for me, it's, the points you just made there, I don't think we've seen any significant changes over the last 3 years, to be honest with you.
I mean, that's in theory what it was supposed to deliver. I get your point there that like someone scores a goal and then it's been reviewed for 2, 3, 4 minutes, and you can feel the anxiety around the stadium. Especially if it's a home team, because it's the whole stadium. And then it's kind of like when they're doing the goal check, and then it comes through that it's a goal. You've kind of missed the romance of the celebration, haven't you, really? Because you've kind of half celebrated already and go, oh, hang on, there's a check. And then when it goes, it's a goal, and you go, yay, let's get on with it. But it's not like, you know, the absolute uproar of an actual goal celebration. You know,
do you remember that one though? Do you remember Madison scored against Spurs there last season, and he does all this dance in front of the camera, and then it's ruled out, and he just looks like a complete dope, like, you know.
And listen, he's not on his own. There was probably 30,000 lads in the stadium doing the same thing.
But it's been crazy, like, you know. For me as well, I think for me, anything that helps a referee, brilliant, fantastic, but it's how it's worked for me. I've talked on this program before about Premier League referees. They're the lowest paid referees of the top 5 leagues in Europe, and that shows with the VAR, because you look at the other top leagues around Europe and it's working really, really well. You look at Euro 2020, the only kind of decision I think that was people kind of looked at and thought, Jesus, was the semi-final England against Denmark. That's what I remember, the goal, Sterling's goal, I think it was. Other than that, I think it worked really well in Euro 2020. And I look back at it, the average time for a decision to be made was 80 seconds with the VAR in Euro 2020. And the reason for that was, the difference is, the reason was they had an official judging every different thing. Like, you had one official judging the offsides, one official judging the red cards incidents, one official judging the penalty decisions. So you had an official for each one, where in the Premier League there's only one official observing everything from Stockley Park. And again, that comes down to the FA not investing in officials. That's where it comes back to, because like I said, all the other top leagues in Europe are getting backing and getting funding, but the FA aren't putting it into the referees, you know. And I think that has a great deal to do with it, because we can talk about VAR, but it's still one official talking to another, so it's still human error we're getting. Do you know what I mean? You look, for instance, like Mike Dean or someone in Stockley Park, he's always going to agree with the referee on the pitch, on the field of play that day, you know. Just, for me, it goes back to investment, and I think until the FA puts money into it, I think we're going to get the same old story, you know.
Well, here's a suggestion for you, and this is my limited knowledge on it as well. The people that sit in Stockley Park, should they be ex-referees, or should they be linked to refereeing, or should they be more independent?
Well, there was talk about this before, like in some of the WhatsApp groups and stuff like that, with different referees. Like, to me, I don't know. Like, it's if a referee in Stockley Park is, say, on a Sunday, was out at a match. Mike Dean, for instance, remember that Mitrovic should have been sent off, or he got headbutted or something last season, and he didn't give the red card. And then I think there was 2 weeks later he was in Stockley Park, and it was an obvious red card in the game, and he does the exact same decision he did a few weeks ago against Fulham.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There is a technology there, but it's still a referee. It's still a human being that's behind the decision making. So for me, I don't know. Like you hear a lot of ex-players saying, "Oh, the referee." You never see an ex-player going into refereeing, and there's a good reason for that. That type of way. So I don't know necessarily if it would work having an independent, say, adjudicator in there with the referee or not.
No, where I was coming from is if you have the referee that's there, I mean, obviously there's a bond within refereeing, no different than players or managers or whatever it is, and they have their association. So by definition, they don't necessarily want to go against their mates.
Exactly.
What I mean? So what I'm saying to you is if you had referees and your linesmen and all the rest of it officiating the game, but when it goes to Stockley Park, then it's people who are not directly involved in refereeing. So what I'm saying, if Mike Dean is refereeing matches this weekend coming up, next week he shouldn't be sitting in Stockley Park. It shouldn't be a referee. It should be a guy who knows the rules of the game and a guy who can read the VAR system. Because I mean, VAR is supposed to answer everything, and you're just picking a moment in time with a suggestion of where it is, and you're reading of the game. So what I'm saying is, if you weren't using referees in Stockley Park who potentially have that weekend off, let's say that's their turn to do Stockley Park, I wonder would the decisions work out better, because he wouldn't be thinking, well, Mike Dean gave me this decision last week, and and like, it's like jobs for the boys, and we're looking after each other.
And look, Mike Dean could have whoever's in Stockley Park could be his assistant referee next week in Old Trafford or Anfield, wherever it would be. But again, for me, that your question, it goes back to investment. The FA knew in 2012 in 13 season that this was going to eventually come in. So they should have been looking at it thinking, right, we're going to invest in a team that know the laws of the game, but aren't actually active officials in the Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two. They should have set aside a team, because like you know yourself, they have their panels for the sending offs. They have independent panels for judging whose goal it was and stuff like that. They should have invested in something like that at the time. They didn't do it. They were left to just use officials that are there, and they're struggling for officials, really, And again, like you said, there is egos there. You look at Mike Dean, you look at Michael Oliver. Like Michael Oliver, I thought was a really good referee coming in. He still is, but the more you do it, the bigger the ego gets as well.
Yeah, I suppose that the counter argument to it really is VAR, the technology that's there, should be able to give even someone who might be a dummy like me about the rules the answer there and then to give to the referee. But where it gets a bit contentious, it's not necessarily the offsides. It's not necessarily. I suppose you could argue it could be some of the penalty decisions. But it's this whole thing that's come in now. Like when a player leaves the ground and endangering another player, and a follow through on a tackle, and it got my goat up last weekend because I seen a player getting sent off for Everton with a follow through on a tackle, and 2 hours later, I seen a player following through on a high knee on a tackle on Jordan Henderson Cresswell for West Ham. And I don't want to beat the drum on this just because I'm a Liverpool fan. And he, it didn't result in a red card, literally 2 hours later. And they weren't really dissimilar. They were both high challenges at the knee, endangering the player's welfare, or whatever you guys call it as the actual state.
No.
And it's just that it's those areas where VAR can't even fix either, because if you slow it down, it looks like nearly premeditated murder. And if you speed it up, you're not sure whether you're getting it right or not.
It's again, it goes back to consistency, and it goes back to, in the opinion of the referee that's in charge. Everyone, like, you could have 5 people lined up, 3 would say that's a definite red, the other 2 will say no. That's, you can bring all the technology you want in, but it's still going to go back to the human error, and it's always going to happen until. And to me as well, David Ellery keeps changing the rules. Even in the VAR, the offside rule changed. Straight, they made the lines thicker to give advantage to the attacking player. They made a mistake the first time around, giving the 10 lines, and everyone was going mad about offside goals. And the laws of the game keep changing and changing, and it does. As a referee, you're trying to take it in all the time. You have to learn. You have to know all the current laws, existing laws, and then you're learning new laws as well. But at the end of the day, it does go back to human error, and people's opinions are going to be divided. Obviously, people love, that's what football is about and all, but it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
I know the two tackles you're talking about, and it does give officials a bad name when you don't see consistency like that,
Yeah, and this is not me, because I looked at the Everton one as well, and it's not because I'm a Liverpool fan. I thought that was a little bit harsh as well, but again, he had left the ground and he's endangering the player, and there's so many factors that come in that are totally outside of VAR. Really, it's really like you're endangering a player's welfare, so it's a straight red or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So it was just interesting to get your take on that, because I know obviously offsides can be very clear cut, or if a goalkeeper comes off his line for a penalty or whatever it is, those you can figure out really quick. You have the technology for that. But those ones where you have a contentious tackle, or a guy coming off the ground, or a guy going into tackle for a ball, but his momentum takes him through. And all that. Like, how are you supposed to stop your momentum in a tackle?
I know. Well, listen, there was that red card, Pogba, remember, a few weeks ago, and like the minute I seen it, I was like, Jesus, he's in trouble here. And I seen the replay, and I was like, definitely straight red. But there was lads WhatsApping me going, how is that straight red and all, Again, he's endangering the safety of opponent. His studs are over the ball. He's not in control of the tackle, so it's a straight red card by the laws of the game. It doesn't matter, whether it was intentional or not. It's a straight red card.
Yeah, the only thing I looked at with that is at no point had he got his eye on the ball. He was just looking at the player going into the tackle, and that's how I viewed it back then. Yeah. I wasn't looking at his feet or how he went into the ball or the studs or anything like that. It was the fact that he never once looked at the ball, and he looked totally at the player. So he was playing the player, not the ball. So that's what made up my mind on it. Yeah, but I do see those decisions there that still require that little bit of human. And even if the referee goes over to the sideline and looks at the screen and slows it down and plays it back and slows down, plays it back, that nearly makes it look worse. You know what I mean? Because yourself, if you go over the top of a ball in a tackle and you slow that down, that's GBH at times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But and the other thing is we don't see many referees going over to the screen, which I talked about on here before and all. I think when you make a decision, you have to sell it. And we talked about the incident in was in the Chelsea Arsenal there, or Chelsea Liverpool, sorry, in Anfield, and Craig Pawson literally ran over. I think he got about 10 yards away from the screen. Looked like that, and just sprinted back to make the decision. That's the thing. Like, he was
trying to Plamaz the Chelsea team there, really, but he failed miserably.
Because I think it was just before half time as well, the incident, wasn't it? And but refereeing is all about selling the decision. If he had went over to the screen, spent a bit of time on it, the crowd will say, right, fair enough. He's actually spent time looking. He's made the decision. He's had a talk to Stockley Park in his ear. So, but
well, you would think if you're going to jog all the way over, and even if you've made your decision and you're going to act it out, at least put a bit of acting in it. You know what I mean?
Like,
don't go over and go and walk off, like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, that's what it's about,
And it was a decision that killed what was really a good game up till that point, even though I'm a Liverpool fan. But
definitely. Like I said, it just happened before half time as well. So God knows, and Chelsea played well in the second half. But it is. It's fine lines. It's just fine lines, and it's one of those things. I think I looked it up. The Premier League is, they take the longest time to make decisions. I know we just talked about that, saying it was too fast, but they do take the longest time. And like I said, it takes it away from it. You were at a few games this season already, like the Brighton game and stuff like that. And from yourself, the atmosphere kind of dies out a bit if a decision from VAR goes against you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's I don't know. Let's look at the negatives. We did the pros there.
So that's not the negatives, no?
No, it is, yeah. But this is what, when they were looking at it, when they were, when it was coming in, this is what came out, what might happen. So one of them was time wastage, which we obviously just alluded to and spoke about. A lack of transparency. You can't always see what's going on. So you're kind of in the cold about it, especially if you're in a stadium.
Yeah.
It can still get decisions wrong, which is, we know, 100%. But the last one is an interesting one. Referees relying more on technology. So are we going down the road here of referees not necessarily want to making decisions and pushing it back on VAR and going, well, I know where to go on this. This was VAR. Everything's VAR kind of thing. And that whole human element is getting sucked over to a point like, are we staring down the barrel in 20 years' time of football where the guy in the middle of the park is going to be like a robot or a drone or something like that, and not an actual human in a black costume?
Well, the last point there, like I said it earlier on. To me, they're not relying on technology. They're just relying on another official using the technology to get the decision right, rather than the actual technology itself. Because you're always going to have another official in Stockley Park making those decisions, or advising you, not making the decision, advising you to change your decision, or advising you that you made the right decision. Or then the third option is advising you to go to the screen and actually look at the decision that you have made. So for me, I don't think they're relying, they're lacking and relying totally on technology myself, to be honest with you. Some of the other, the time, like I said, in Euro 2020, the average time was 80 seconds. That's what you want to see. We're not seeing that. Like I said, it goes back to having the officials, the amount of officials in Stockley Park on a game. At the moment, it's like I said, it's only one making all the decisions. Where if you had more, I think it would be more free flowing. In rugby, yes, I know what you're saying about the being in the stands. In rugby, you can actually hear the conversation, what's going on between. Now that is something they're looking at. There's a lot of talk about that. Whether or not it be like they were talking about, maybe doing a dummy run for the World Cup in Qatar. So we'll wait and see what happens there. I think it will make referees' decision making easier if the crowd can actually hear the conversation that's going on.
Be more transparent.
Exactly.
Be more transparent, and you'd understand where they're coming from.
Exactly.
How they're applying the laws of the game.
Yeah.
So it's not like, geez, what was he thinking there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know exactly what he was thinking.
Exactly.
Then.
And I think I'm not going to say, fans will sympathize with referees when they hear, but you'd like to think it will give them a better understanding of where the referee's decision is coming from if they hear the conversation going on. Like I said, it has worked in rugby. You've seen it before, but it's going to take a while. Like I said, this has been going on for years, and we're still talking about how they can make it better. So it is going to take a lot longer, and there's going to be a lot of these dummy runs that are happening. So hopefully they can get it sorted in the next few years, and we'll be talking about more of the positives of the VAR than the negatives.
Yeah, it's also a situation there as well, is a lot of the backlash that the refs get. I know at times they get it wrong and some of it's deserving, but some of it is coming from an element of the fan base where they actually don't understand the rules of the game, and they're just freaking out because obviously their team has been denied a goal or denied a penalty or an offside or whatever it is. So, and I'm sure they understand those basic things, but when you talk about things like tackles and endangering a player and a player's welfare and all that kind of stuff, they don't go to, like, these guys are there's no tackling in the game anymore. All this kind of, you know what I mean?
No, and fairness, like I said, the laws of the game are changing constantly. Like the David Ellery's come in and he's changing them as he pleases, and it's even confusing current officials and referees around the country here and abroad.
Yeah, well, we remember going back a few years ago. We remember the frustration of fans at decisions being made wrong and the call for VAR, and fans were watering at the mouth when this was coming in and stuff like that. But I'm looking here now. I had a look at a couple of surveys since then. And the survey said, only 26% of fans in an FSA survey, 33,000 fans were surveyed in relation to VAR across the board, and only 26% of those fans were in support of VAR still, which is mad, isn't it, when you think about it?
Right when
and they cited the inability to celebrate a goal and the time taken over decisions.
There you go.
So we've knocked it out of the park there straight away with what the issues are. Another one that came in that was interesting, another survey that I looked at, 95% of surveyed fans said that VAR made the experience of watching a game less enjoyable. But I suppose if you go back and you look at some of the bad decisions that they got wrong in the day, was that any more enjoyable?
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? You can give out now, and then the the conversations years ago in work on a Monday morning. Oh, that was never a penalty. Ah, yeah, it was. It's still gonna be like that,
Yeah. And then when you have your refereeing hat on, it's like, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
now you've asked for it, now you've got it, and now there's nowhere to go complain now.
That's it. Like, you can't take it away straight away. There's gonna be, nothing's gonna be perfect straight away. You're gonna have to iron out some issues before you get to the end product.
Well, see, there's no real middle ground. There's nowhere else to go. It's either technology or it's human.
Yeah.
And there's errors in technology and there's errors in human. So which balances out that bit more? The other side of that survey was an interesting one. 44% of fans turned around and said that because of the way it's gone, they'd be less likely to attend the match in future as a result. That was an interesting one, and that's a high percentage now. But as you said, I know as well from standing in the ground, when like the anxiety is unbelievable when you're waiting for the decision to come through. And all well and good when you're looking at it and you can see it, I know, on a match day, but depending on where you're sitting in the stadium, like if you're standing behind a goal or you're at either end of the pitch, you can't really see the goals that are being scored either end. You're just assuming that the reaction of the other fans is what you're
waiting.
You're
just waiting. Like
we seen it when I was over there, as you said, in the Brighton game. Salah scored disallowed, Brighton scored disallowed. You know what I mean? And it was just like, and even the build up, I think, to one of their goals, there was a free kick. I think Firmino was fouled off the ball or something like that, and they never brought it back, and all this kind of was uproar.
It's a different experience, isn't it? Like, and you think with that 44%, you think after the 18 months where, or 12 months or whatever it was, crowds can go into the stadium, you think they wouldn't mind going back and even having a bit of VAR involved as well,
Yeah. They also got some feedback in that survey, which is an interesting one. The comments that came out was, one, it was ruining the game. Which all the original decisions back in the day were ruining the game as well. Just so depending on whether you were on the good side or the bad side of the decision. And one which was an interesting one, and one that you've brought up before as well. I don't know the rules of the game anymore. Because it's gone down so scientific in terms of VAR. So like there's layers in which decisions are made. And guys only see the top layer and go, that tackle was a foul. That's a yellow card or a red card.
Sure. Like 2 seasons ago, they changed the laws about the handball, and last season they changed it back again. So you're like sitting there watching the game, people are confused, like,
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
They did another survey. This was done by Comreg. 2,100 fans, which is low enough, but obviously they probably had a decent mix, but still 2,100. 30% of those fans thought that it had improved the game. 44% said it had gotten worse, which kind of ties in with your match day experience and stuff like that. 36% of supporters between the age of 18 to 34 believe VAR has made football better.
But so, we're out that age bracket, goes.
Well, I'm well out of it anyway. You know what I mean? I'm there and looping back around. So I suppose maybe if you're looking at that age bracket might be more in tune with technology, and might be more in tune with the understanding of the rules and dig deep into it to get their knowledge. 29% of fans aged 55, compared to 29% of fans aged 55 or over, which is still not our bracket, thank God. So it's all good. So we're the middle ground there,
Well, it is. And now I was just going to say, it probably is from a certain, I think you said, was it 33% there said it's probably from their perspective, they're probably looking at it and thinking, and like I'm a fan as well, probably thinking the referees have maybe got a bit laxy because of VAR, and that's what they're probably getting upset about. Because I feel that way as well,
Yeah, absolutely. They delved down into clubs as well, so they made it specific, which was a good idea, I think, as well, because you know yourself, depending on how your team is doing and when you're doing the survey, you know, like if you're winning all the trophies, your VAR is the best thing ever, you know. But Arsenal fans were surveyed. 44% are more likely to believe that VAR has made football better. That was Arsenal. 37% of Chelsea fans, 34% of Liverpool fans, and 32% of Manchester United fans felt it had improved the game more. Now, I know our viewers out there, and you could drop your comments into the episode, but our viewers out there would tend to believe that the teams, the original top four, if you like, or whatever it is, would tend to get more rub of the green and more rub
Yeah.
of decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
And over time, I suppose, with the history and the success of Arsenal and Man United, the other teams would believe that they would get more rub of the green as well with the success that they've had. So it was interesting to see that, the percentages drop as the success goes up, depending on the team that you follow.
And you see, they mustn't have found any City fans to do the survey. Did you see that?
Yeah. I was talking about the original top four.
Oh yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Just put that out there.
But now that is, you're right. Like I said at the start of the episode, like years ago, United, they got all the decisions. It was usually the teams up there in the lower league, the teams at the bottom weren't getting the decisions. And it's the same, it's like I said, it's meant to balance itself out, but it never did. The amount of penalties probably Arsenal won, we won, and people are going mad, but it's always going to be like that. There's no change in that.
It was kind of more enjoyable that way, though, wasn't it? It was kind of like, because you could celebrate or you could go crazy or whatever it is. They also interviewed then younger fans, which I presume was below the 18-year-old bracket, because that's the brackets we were working in. 35% said that VAR was being applied consistently in that age bracket, and 33% said it was inconsistently. So there's nothing conclusive there. It's kind of a flip of a coin, really. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, again, it depends on when you took the survey. If you got a good decision that weekend,
or not, like, But it's probably tough as well for a lot of younger people, because they're only used to this now. They wouldn't have had the thrill of going to the games in the 90s. When the pitches were all cut up and there was tackles flying in everywhere. You look at Premier League years, the amount of goals that were offside back in the day. And they'll never experience that, but it's all about technology now for them, and they don't know any better.
And some of those goals, when you look those Premier League years, they're absolutely golden, because it wasn't marginal. Like these guys were, at the moment now they're measuring your armpit to your toe. Back then you could have been 3 bodies ahead and get away.
I'm sure. Do you remember even the Roy Carroll incident against Spurs that time? Your man took a shot from the halfway line and he spills it, and it's about 3 yards over the line, and he even stops and he looks up and he continues. Those decisions will be a goal straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a look at some of the decisions that cropped up that were very interesting. That some of the fans cited in some of the surveys. One was the West Ham versus Aston Villa. It was the Ollie Watkins goal that was ruled offside because of his arm, which fans thought was harsh. And I think that was one of those decisions that led to a change in terms of the measuring of that and all.
Yeah.
Then
when it was first introduced, they said a part of your body that you can score with can't be offside, and people were saying, well, as they said, his arm was offside, you can't, score with your arm, so they changed it around again. So that's one of those things, like I said, everyone does be confused by.
Yeah, and then as it progresses more and more up the arm, as it gets to the higher area, it becomes more and more legal. So where do you go with it? The other one was the Manchester United versus West Brom. Slaven Bilic basically had a meltdown after referee David Coote reversed a penalty decision, ruling Bruno Fernandes had touched the ball in a challenge on Conor Gallagher. So that was another one that incensed a few of them.
Bruno was in the wrong box at that time.
Yeah. And
I think 2 weeks later, did Bilic have a go off Mike Dean at half time on the pitch in Goodison Park? He followed him, and Mike Dean sent him off. Then that was only a few weeks after that.
Yeah, well, we know how hot-tempered and hot-blooded Slaven Bilic was anyway. But,
them Croatians, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Then the other one was Crystal Palace versus Leeds. Patrick Bamford. Yeah, he came out and he said, VAR, remember he did that famous interview.
Yeah, the interview after
football after his equaliser was ruled out. Yeah. And then, of course, the one that's probably the one that's cropped up at times as being one of the most contentious ones was the GBH tackle from Pickford and Van Dijk that put him out for the whole season. Talking about a lad who left the ground and endangered the welfare of a player.
There you go again. Michael Oliver was a referee that day, and to me, he was, when you seen him coming up through the ranks in League 1, League 2, because I did watch all the lower leagues and stuff like that, and he was well sought after, and he came in and he did well, but he let himself down in that game. It should have been a straight red card. Pickford endangered the safety of an opponent, and Obviously, because you can't give you can't necessarily give a red card about the damage, because he didn't know what damage he had done at the time, but you knew straight away in days in the safety of an opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of where I came from on it, and that's what I was kind of looking at. Anything to add going forward? I mean, what would you like to see happen? Is there any changes you'd like to see come in?
Like I said, the one for me would be the communication, that you can actually hear it if you're watching it on telly, or if you're in the stadium, you can actually hear the communication between the officials on the field of play and the officials in Stockley Park in charge of the VAR. Again, like I said earlier at the top of the show, more investment from the FA. The FA have needed more officials there. I'll go back to Euro 2020 again. The more officials, the more officials that are there, the more efficient and quick the decisions are going to be. And I think that can only benefit the game going forward. And it might silence some of those fans from them surveys that say it's ruining the game. I think proper investment needs to be made as well.
Yeah, I think if they can speed up the decisions, I think they'll get more of them right than wrong.
Yeah.
Because I think the more that you look at something, the more you start guessing, second guessing yourself, and guys are inputting and stuff like that, and you start thinking different things. So yeah, I think, like, and I suppose for referees, I mean, if you're a decent referee on the continent and stuff like that, your first gut feeling is probably the right one in general. You know what I mean? It's because you don't see, compared to the Premier League, you don't see a lot of decisions being overruled and changed from the referee to the VAR. Compared to, like, I think you see a bit of it, don't you, in the Premier League, where it's starting to come through, where there is a little bit of overruling and changing and stuff like that. Again, it's VAR doing its job, basically. It's not like we don't want to see referees overruled, but we just want to see between the two to get the decision right.
It's trial and error now as well, isn't it? Like, but people are still learning about technology now. About, like I said, at the start of the season, they might made the lines thicker to give advantage to the attacker. You're going to see little tweaks like that, but once it's all said and done, and like I said, hopefully they can introduce where there's communication, I think we'll be talking about VAR more in a positive way than what is now.
Well, technology is like anything. It keeps on getting better and better and better and improving all the time. You know what I mean? So yes, they will iron out a lot of stuff eventually. But again, as we said earlier, you'll always be left with that decision of like a flying tackle or leaving the ground or something like that. And,
that's where the best technology is up here,
Yeah, you can watch a video 100 times, but I mean, if you look at body language and facial and how they were approaching it in that build up to it and stuff like that, that really sells the story of what the intent was in the tackle,
like you said earlier, because it's, your gut feeling. If I'm in Greystones or I'm in Brickfields, I'm on my own, straight away what to do, and you can't go back then. And there is going to be human error, like I said, but with the technology that's there, we have to be getting it right. And the more consistent we are, like I said, the more fans will be happy. And like you were saying there, it's the timing of it as well. We need to be a lot quicker, but at the same time, you still have to come to the end goal of making the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, pleasure having you on as always. I mean, if I'm going to talk about refereeing or VAR, there's no one else on the network that comes on to talk about this. Because
look, I have my cards ready to go and all.
But even when we're on the Monday mashup and you break it down for the boys, there's still uproar about it and stuff like that. Which is
you can never get it right.
The passion that we love. But as always, Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube for the videos, Spotify for audio versions of the show. This has been your upper tier look at VAR. 3 years since it's been approved in the Premier League. Let us know, fans, what you think. Are you all in? Are you all out? Do you want it to go back to the way it was? Or is technology here to stay? We shall see. Till next time, Mark, a pleasure.
Cheers, Niall. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, bud.